The first PO I think that we got from QVC was like 250 grand, which was, huge for a brand new product nobody had ever
Right.
heard of. And then it snowballed after that. The second one was a 500,000. The third one was 1 million.
All of the successful people have many things in common: principles, values, characteristics. We'll call them clues. My purpose is to uncover these clues so that you can use them, apply them to your life, and become massively successful. My goal is that you do become a success. My hope is that we partner to buy commercial real estate, helping you generate income and grow your net worth passively, completely hands off. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? Max Moala here with another episode of the Clues of Success. We're going to have a great guest here today. We have Marvin Philip, who is now the co-founder of Spilled Milk ice cream franchise that they're starting a franchise out there based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Some of the things that Marvin had done is he played football at Cal University, grew up in the Bay, and then also was fortunate enough to have played 5 years at the NFL for Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Buffalo. He had a hamper business, was on Shark Tank, and patented that, sold that company, and got into coaching at the University of Utah, and then now full-blown businessman. So excited to have Marvin here today. Marvin, what's going on?
What's up?
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate your time.
It's been a long time coming, but I'm glad we got to sit down and do this, man.
Yeah, man. Obviously, you're doing some big things in business here. I mean, first the hamper business. These are the laundry hampers here. How did you come up with that idea and got a patent too? It's just crazy.
No, yeah, that's a great question. So I was actually, it might have been my second or third year in the NFL. I was in Pittsburgh and I was playing, and I ruptured a disc in my back in practice, and went home. And if you've ever had back pain, man, I'm telling you, back pain is the worst pain ever. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't bend over. I mean, even trying to like lean over the sink and brush my teeth, man, it was just painful. And so my laundry piled up and I couldn't, I had the like the hampers that you carry.
Yeah.
I had one of those, and but I couldn't carry it. I mean, and I'd had my clothes in there and couldn't go up and down the stairs. And so I was trying to figure out, I was like, man, I was just trying to find something to help me with what I was experiencing at that time. And so I'd search, try to find a hamper that would just bring the clothes up to the top so I wouldn't have to bend over. And couldn't find it. And so I just, man, I took to a notebook, just started drawing, did some R&D, went to stores, and this is over the course of 2 or 3 years, to try to find something, couldn't find something. And so decided to design and just do it myself.
So, and then once you actually started it, tell us kind of how that started, because you went on Shark Tank. What was that experience like? And then you ended up selling it. Man, how?
Yeah, so back in, man, it must have been like 7, 8 years now. We did Shark Tank. But that's how we launched the product. I only had prototypes. I didn't have a product. So if you ever go back and watch that show, it wasn't even a finished product. We were just trying to get it done. They were trying to get it done and aired before the NFL football season started. And so I couldn't get product back from China quick enough. And you had mentioned, I was going back to, in our conversation earlier, I was going back to China quite a bit, meeting with manufacturers, trying to get things right, to be ready to ship. And so when I did the show, it was just a prototype. I was showing something that the manufacturer in China sent me, as a prototype and just to try out. But I did the show. You know what? The show in itself is a trip. It was definitely a film production. I did the show. You imagine yourself. They show the people walking through that tunnel. How they walk.
Yeah.
Where the house are. Well, you filmed that. I filmed that. I did that after the pitch, and so I'm in there, and prior to that, you've got to memorize your pitch before. You got to memorize all that stuff. You go in the day before. You do a dry run with the producers to make sure everything is right. You're not going to stutter. And then the day of the filming, you go in there, and you're in that room, and it's the whole production. Everybody's talking. You're going through what you're going to say. Well, they have 2 lights in the back. They've got a red light and a green light. And they have it on red, and it says when it turns green, then you can start your pitch. And And so you're standing there, I kid you not, it felt like 5 minutes because they're getting all their B-roll shots. So they
Yeah.
got cameras going all around you, and it's a straight up staring contest for like 5 minutes. The most
What?
awkward thing ever. If you've ever been in that situation where you got to pitch somebody, um, and then it turns green, and then you have to, and then you start. And so it was a good experience. I didn't get a deal. I didn't have any sales. I didn't have a product. It was just, I was just getting this thing, off the ground. But the gal from QVC, Lori Grenier, she was like, you know what, hit me up when you get a product. I'd be happy to, to talk more about this, once you get a product in stock.
Wow. That's kind of
Yeah.
amazing. So when you're in that room, man, because those are like some big time players, How was that? Just, I mean, meeting there, was it nervous or was like?
Oh man, it was intimidating. I was super nervous. But I think the great thing is with my background and with football, the background with football, right? Being in that situation, going on for me, going on a mission, all those things had prepared me for, I guess, for that moment. But I was still, man, it was nerve wracking. It was that whole thing, the whole pitch with question and answers lasted about 90 minutes.
Oh
But
wow.
they're only showing
Yeah.
2 or 3 minutes. They're all condensing it down. And the part that I was worried about is you got to sign a contract saying that they can portray you in any light that they want. So if you notice, every shark wears the same exact thing every film, every season, because they cut and paste and take things from different people's pitches and including yours. So they're like, hey, it might be there. So there was stuff that was said in mine that wasn't actually said in my pitch, if that makes sense.
Yep, that makes sense.
They cut it and took it in from somebody else's.
Yeah, it's like a movie.
Yeah. Yep. They're editing
The
stuff.
editing.
That was the thing I was most nervous about. I was like, man, they better not make me look dumb on national TV.
Man, so how was that experience? So to selling it, just kind of go through that. What was some of the obstacles that you had to overcome? I mean, I'm pretty sure it wasn't very easy. What was that process like?
Man, it was there were a number of obstacles, right? I mean, from a manufacturing side, I wasn't dealing with a manufacturer here in the US. I was dealing with a manufacturer in China. And so I would have to go back to China. There's the manufacturing, there's the language barrier, right? Because you have an idea how something should be from a product standpoint. And you're trying to, have, someone that can make it a lot cheaper, than they can here do that and make them in mass quantities. And so that was the first challenge, right? The first challenge is obviously, okay, how do I get this product here, get this product made? And then the second challenge was, okay, now we got a product, how do we sell it? And so, we were on Amazon. Initially we started, it was just B2C. We were just going straight to the customer base. And so we were selling it online. And then I hit up Lori Grenier from QVC. And man, honestly, she tried to get me on my stuff. She tried to get me on some pricing stuff. And so what I did is I actually went around her and found another buyer that would buy it at my wholesale cost. And it was, man, I mean, the challenges is don't stop, right? The challenges come every day, especially for a new product and, from, that we're trying to sell. But it's just how to overcome those. And we overcame those. The first PO I think that we got from QVC was like 250 grand, which was, huge for a brand new product nobody had ever heard of. And then it snowballed after that. The second one was $500,000. The third one was $1 million. And that, there comes a point where me financially, I didn't make millions and millions of dollars in the NFL. And so me financially, I had to look for other resources. And so that's when I had licensed the product out to a company called Household Essentials. Household Essentials took it. They took on the purchase order and took on the distribution, which was a huge help to me.
If you don't know who I am or new to the show, I'm Max Moala, owner of Api Investments, a real estate investment firm focused on buying commercial real estate. Our deals are designed to be an extremely tax-efficient passive investment vehicle where you get to reap all the benefits of owning real estate without all the headaches. No tenants, no toilets, especially no cockroaches. To join the waiting list, go to myapinvestments.com. You'll be able to get the inside scoop and first access to all of our deals. Sign up. You when you're playing the NFL, did you already have a plan to do something else? What was like, did you or
Yeah.
were you planning like, man, I'll make money in the NFL and then I've made it. I don't ever have to work again. Kind of
Nah, you know
what
what?
were your
That's
mindset?
a great question. I have always been real with myself. That's the reason why I went to Cal Berkeley to begin with, um, and stayed home. Obviously my relationship with the coaches there at that time, but that was the reason why I decided to go to UC Berkeley as opposed to another school because I knew football wouldn't last. Um, my upbringing is unique, man. I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. Um, do you remember Jamal Anderson?
Yeah,
University.
Dirty
We were,
Bird.
yeah. I was real. Our family. He was like my brother. We were real close, and every summer I was out in Atlanta. I was a ball boy for the Falcons. I think I started 12 years old, and did that until I got to high school. And so I saw a lot at a young age from that perspective, and even with my brothers being in music, and so I knew that football wouldn't last very long. And so that was the whole reason why I wanted to go to Cal was to for the network, to try to parlay something after the fact.
Man, that's smart. I mean, that's sometimes. I mean, Cal was a good school, and it was in Pac-12. What did you end up going to school for?
I was a business major,
Oh, okay, okay. So you
and
already.
we were Pac-10 before that. Come on,
Oh
Max.
yeah. My bad, my bad. Pac-10. Spoken like a true Pac-10 California guy.
Oh man.
Yep. So, man, so you already had the mindset of doing some business after football.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, from a football perspective, I'm not, I'm considered undersized, right? I'm not the biggest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, obviously. But even before that, in high school, I had some foresight there that I knew that I always wanted to play in the NFL, but I knew it wouldn't last forever, and so I wanted to be able just to build a network and set myself up for for post football.
Man, yeah, that's great. So talk about like the NFL. What was that like being, I mean, you kind of jumped around. What were kind of some things that you learned the business side of being the NFL?
That's an interesting point. I learned that early on in my career. I was a late round pick, man. I was a 6th round pick to Pittsburgh, and so um, I saw that early on. I was fortunate enough, my first year, to make the team, and then you soon realize that it's a business, right? There's a salary cap, money's involved. Who can I get for cheaper? If you're not the guy, we know that there's only a few guys on the team that get a good chunk of that money. Everybody else, you kind of fill in the gaps. And so, yeah, the business side, is something that I learned quick and early on, of that. Some guys, you don't realize that because, you're one of their top guys, and so you're not privy to what goes on on the other spectrum, right? You have a guy like, let's say, Tom Brady, who gets paid $50 million a year throwing the ball to a receiver that makes 500 grand a year. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's it's definitely different. But football, I learned early on that the business that it's a business.
Yeah. And then was it, I mean, you were getting this money. Were you already, I don't know, I mean, what were you kind of doing with your money? Were you already looking for ways to invest it or to grow it here? Or were you saving it all? What were some of the things that you were doing with the money that you're making in the NFL?
Well, so before that, my first three years in the NFL, I was interning at Cushman and Wakefield.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so in the off season, I would come back. There's a gentleman that was a huge Cal booster, and he's one of the top guys at Cushman and Wakefield. And so I reached out to him right when I got drafted, and told him, hey, I wanted to get into the commercial real estate game. And so my first 3 years, and I was based in San Francisco, right there in Union Square. So I would train in the morning, I would take some classes, and when I was done with classes, I would take the BART over to San Francisco, and I would work there from like 12 to 5, 12 to 6. And just, just trying to learn. For me, I'm very cautious. I try to be very cautious of what I put my money in because,
Hmm.
but you work hard for that, right? And
Yeah.
so I just wanted to learn. And so I was an intern for my first 3 years in the NFL for Cushman& Wakefield, and just learning every aspect of the retail and commercial real estate business. And, I've got some, I ended up getting some advice and, some things to do, but yeah, I really, there are a few things that I invested in. I saved it. There were some that were losses. I invested in a few family businesses that didn't get a return on and ended
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
chopping it up. But that's a part of the learning process, right? You've got to, in order to succeed, you got to fail. And so, I've failed and learned and used those as learning opportunities to try to, find the next thing.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible that you were playing the NFL, because I think most people are like, man, I'm making decent money. Why should I need to do something else, And you were
Right.
interning, you know? That says a lot. And then, but I love how you said, in order to succeed, you have to fail. What most people, I think what everyone's starting to realize is you cannot succeed without failing, right? It's
Nope. Nope. It's a part of the formula.
so for those who are kind of nerds or not nerds, there's something called a scientific method. And basically what the scientific method is you have an observation, and then you'll do some research, but then part of that research is also experimenting. And so if you're failing or succeeding, that's the part of it. And then you kind of realize what you're doing, and it's a whole bunch of trial and error. And I guess if the goal is for us to succeed, become successful, we have to be able to have that trial and error here. Talk about
Yep.
what some of your
Yep.
failures, what was some significant lessons that you've learned from some of your failures?
Um, you know what? I think the biggest thing is to learn is that failure is temporary, right? I think there's a lot of people that get
Mm,
bent out of shape and they harp on their failures as opposed to using them as um, learning experiences, right?
yeah.
For example, in the investment world, I'm dealing now. We're in the middle of another capital raise. The thing that I've gained and the knowledge that I've gained from that is that investors invest in people, not so much the business, right? There's ideas are a dime a dozen, but what people want to invest in is the person. And with that being said, is part of the failure game is building resiliency because you're always failing. I mean, you know what I mean? You wake up every day, be like, "Hey, I'm gonna get punched in the mouth today," but all right, let's go. Um, but for me, it's I've had a ton of failures, but the one thing I've learned is um, it's just how to move forward, right? It's being able to not harp on those, just to learn from those mistakes, and make sure you don't make them again. How to navigate around those mistakes, later down the road.
You're looking to sell your home quickly without hassle? Look no further than Live to Give Realty, the real estate company that buys homes for cash. Selling a home can be stressful and a time-consuming process. I remember when we were selling our home for the first time, we weren't sure if the buyers were going to be able to qualify, if they were going to go through the closing, if our home was going to be able to pass inspections. Whatever your situation, Live to Give Realty can help. They offer a simple, straightforward solution to help you move on to the next chapter of your life. With Live to Give Realty, you can expect a fair cash offer for your home with no hidden fees, a quick and hassle-free closing process with no need for inspections, repairs, or appraisals, and they close on your timeline. So why wait? If you're ready to sell your home quickly and without hassle, contact Live to Give Realty today at 888-604-4690 or check out their website, livetogiverealty.com. You said you brought up learning how to move forward. How do you move forward knowing you're gonna get punched in the face every single day?
You know what? It's having I'm a very goal oriented person, and so if you look, I've got a notebook here, and what I do then I plan out my just basically my to do list, my task, right? Okay, what do I got to get to? I've got my goals. Okay, what do we want to accomplish in 6 months, a year, so on and so forth. I think having that perspective, right, when you have the end goal in mind, it makes everything so much easier. So for football, for example, right? You prepare yourself. You go through training camps. You go through spring training, off-season workouts, and training camp for what? For the season, right? But your
Hmm.
ultimate goal is the season or the Pac-12 championship or whatever that may be. Um, but the day-to-day grind sucks, man. You guys are throwing up. I don't know when if you were at the U, did you guys have to chug milk? The milk, if you were those guys that were late, no, Doug
Nope, we never had to chug milk.
but um, yeah, it's just all that stuff, right? It's the amount of work that it takes just to get to the end goal. And I think when you put it in that perspective, we associate with sports. The amount of work it takes just to get to the season and then to, get to your end goal, whether it's a championship, man, there's all this training and stuff that goes on, just for those moments, right? It's the week's worth of practices for that one day. And so along the same lines, that's for me, that's what gets me through it is knowing what the end goal is.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge. I think one of the things that Coach Whittingham would say at Utah that he would always, I guess, kind of just drill into us was like trust the process, right?
Right.
That
Yep.
there's this whole process that you guys have to do. You have to put in the work all beforehand before you even get to the season here. And so, yeah, that's one thing that I really learned just from sports here. It's like, man, we're gonna get punched. There's gonna be some sucky times. There's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot more sucky times than a lot more failures than
Yeah.
successes.
But I think that's the great thing with sports, right? Is that it prepares you for that.
Mhm.
Um, when you relate it to sports and business, obviously sports is more physical, whereas business is more of the mental aspect
Right.
of it, right? You know how to navigate certain things. I think sometimes we would much rather take the physical beating than the emotional and physical, beating you may get from business. But in reality, the principle is all the same. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
So, I
trusting the
mean,
process.
yeah, yeah. So you're going here, I mean, just kind of go you're now then you had sold the hamper company here. How did you sell it? And then what was kind of that what was that like moving on to the next chapter of your life?
Yeah, you know what? So I had when I initially licensed it to that company, I was already hands off at that time.
Oh, okay.
I was just consulting on a few matters, for industrial commercial versions. But at that point, I was already hands off, and then finally ended up selling it to them. I mean, it was good. I didn't come out, balling after, but I still exited, and it was good. But then I had this itch for football, after I got done, and that's when I went to, Lewis
Yep.
Powell. We're really close, and so he was like, "Hey man, why don't you come and come volunteer and come help out at the U?" And so I was at a point. Sorry about that. I was at a point where I was able to do that, and so um, I went and volunteered and did that for 3 years, and I was like, "All right, I'm done." Football, I got my football fix. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
good. I'm good. I'm good. Um, and so, I wanted to do something with my family, and that's how we transitioned to, the ice cream, spilled milk ice cream that we're doing now. It was, something I wanted to do with my family, and we decided to do that in 2019.
Man, so I mean, just kind of explain or tell us a little bit about spilled milk. Is it ice cream here? I mean, I've seen some
Yeah.
videos or how we can kind of find you, but
So what we do, so the name of the company is Spilled Milk Ice Cream and Cereal Bar. What we do is everything is custom made when you order it, and so we infuse ice cream with cereal. So we
oh
use a
man.
vanilla base or a chocolate base, and you order. Our top seller, let's say, is the Over the Rainbow. It's Fruity Pebbles and Captain Crunch mixed together in vanilla ice cream, and then we serve it on an orange creamsicle cone. And so that's our top seller. Um, but everything is made to order, and so the impetus behind it was, I felt like there was a gap. You have Cold Stones, who's been around for 50 years.
Hmm.
Baskin Robbins has been around for 80 years. Even Handles has been around for 40 plus years, and I felt like there was a gap with something new and refreshing, with this indulgence ice cream sector. And so if you think of your experience when you go to Cold Stone or Handles or Baskin Robbins, they funnel you in and funnel you out, right? Get your ice
Yeah.
cream. Ours is different. We know the ice cream is good, but it's more about the experience. You come in, you hear, the music bumping. You watch your ice cream being made. You smell the waffle cones being made. The
Ooh.
lights and just the way that our stores are structured. It's made for you to come in, sit, and enjoy that one-on-one time. Our capacity wise, it's probably 50 to 60 seats in there, but it's much different than your traditional ice cream shop.
Wow, man. So as far as starting spilled milk, what are some of the difficulties or things that someone should be aware of if they want to start a new business like this?
Um, I think for one, the thing that I'm learning and the thing that I'm learning with my new partners is that I think we always think money um, is the roadblock, right? I think a lot of times you think, oh, if I had money, I'd be able to do it. The thing that I'm realizing now is money is not the roadblock. Money, and I'm trying to think how to say this. Money is pretty easy to get once you have a pretty firm and a pretty solid plan and base, and you've proven the concept.
Hmm.
With what you're doing with real estate, and I think that's where we're at now. Is that we've proven the concept. The challenges aren't. It's never money. Challenges isn't the money. The challenge is putting in the work, to be able to prepare to get money. Right, making sure whether you do a business plan, your business plan is tight. You got to know who your demographic is. Who's the customer base you're trying to reach. What area are you trying to disrupt. For us, we were trying to disrupt the ice cream industry. We saw what Crumble did, in the cookie industry, and that's what
Hmm.
we're along the same lines. What we're trying to do with the ice cream industry. We get a lot of people saying, ice cream and cereal, is that a fad? Handles, Cold Stone, and Baskin Robbins are both companies that have been around for 40, 50, 80 years. And so, and ice cream is indulgent. I mean, the ice cream industry is huge. And so that's the market that we're after. And so a lot of times the challenge isn't money, it's everything else, right? The research, the know-how, and just trying to understand what you're doing from a business perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, you hit on nail on head as far as, it's as far as having a business plan and just figuring out what are you going to do, who you're going to be selling it to, all those
Right.
things. Yeah. I mean, and like you said about Crumble, I mean, cookies have been around forever and
Ever.
Crumble just
Yeah.
came, and just like taking the nation by storm almost.
Yeah. I mean, you remember, Mrs. Fields was huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mrs. Fields was huge. I mean, you could get, their, Mrs. Fields, their big thing was going into malls, right? And that's what their niche was. And so, yeah, I don't think money is ever there comes a case where, you got to grow and money becomes an issue, but at least initially, money is never the issue. You know, it's understanding all the other aspects of the business prior to that.
Yeah. So you guys are growing now, and then you guys are franchising. Now, are you guys only in Utah?
We actually sold a territory in Arizona, so we have, I think a total of eight franchisees.
Oh
Um,
man. Okay.
we have we have three brick and mortar corporate. Myself, we have three brick and mortar locations with two more opening. We won't own more than five brick and mortar locations. So after our fifth one opens up, um, we're done. And then we'll spread through franchising, um, through spilled milk. And then there's also the the distribution aspect of it as well, right? Getting your product into stores and whatnot.
Right. Where did you guys sell your territory in Arizona?
Peoria, Mesa,
Okay.
Peoria area.
Yeah. When does that open?
That's a good question. It's what the problem we're having right now is construction is such a huge issue for us. Where construction times and everything has taken a lot longer than expected, and so we've been pushed back on our location here in South Jordan almost 9-10 months, and
You
it's
guys
been
are building all these from ground up?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
These are all brand new builds that we're going into.
Why are you choosing to go do new builds versus just buying and leasing out already existing building?
It's hard to go into some existing places because leases are already in place. And so it's much easier to go into a brand new build. And a lot of times for brand perspective, right, and demographic, a lot of the existing places or the new places fit better for us, right, from a brand
Okay.
perspective, right? Going in there with kind of newer, hipper brands, fit us as opposed to going into an existing place with that has their brands established in there.
Oh, okay.
So there's
Yeah.
a ton of market research that we do that goes into where a brick and mortar should go.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah, we I
It's all
mean
about location.
it's location, and there's a technology we use where they can tap into your phone, and they can we can see every cell phone that's been to our store in Salt Lake City for the last however many years, and then from that we can pull information on how much they make, where they work, where they live, all that stuff, which is another
What?
another subject, but it's technology is crazy, man.
What? That's a little scary.
It is scary. Yeah, you think about
I'm gonna leave my every time I go to Crumble store now, I'm gonna leave my phone at home.
Yeah, so there's so much data, but what we do with that data, we start to build a customer profile, right? The hardest thing for us is to understand who our customer base is,
Yeah.
but off of that, we're able to understand who our customer base is. So when we market or when we go into new areas, we know who specifically we need to target to.
Right. Right. Man, yeah, that's kind of amazing. As far well, you guys also have an app. What's kind of
Yeah, I think
the
that's
picture
that's
that you guys?
yeah, it's all a part. Well, it's all a part of the roadmap, right? Obviously, we've got to tackle what we can tackle, with brick and mortars and franchises up front. But yeah, app, distribution, right? Local distribution. Initially, you have Harmon's and some of your associated foods like Dan's, Macy's, local stores that we want to kind of do first in our own backyard before we spread into other places.
Oh, okay. So you guys will actually have like the the cartons of ice cream that you planning to sell
Like
in
a
grocery
pint,
stores?
yeah, a pint ice cream sandwich, right? Those will be
Oh,
available.
wow. Okay. Okay. Man, yeah. Because I'm just thinking, I mean, since my mind is also like crumble, I'm like, man, I think it's really interesting that they have a rotating recipe, you know?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
me every week now, I want to look at
You want to
crumble
look and
and
see what it
see
is.
like,
Yeah.
man, what's the cookies this month or this week? And I want to try them out, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting model. And I mean, obviously you can, yeah. I mean, they have their basic one, their classics that they keep on, but for the most part, I think four of them rotate every single week, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, those guys. You know what? Those guys at the bar, man, they've done a really good job. And one of my one of our board members was actually the former VP of sales there, which is a buddy of mine. And so, once we got into franchising, I had reached out to him. Right, using your network.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
reached out to him just to get an understanding of what that's man. Franchising was new to me, but just to understand what that landscape was like.
Man, that's I mean, I love that you took more from just football and that you're in business and doing, and seem to be doing well here. If you were looking back at your career now, I mean, look back at your life here, what habits would you say, okay, this is why I'm still here or still going today?
Um, I think at a very young age, and what I've learned from sports is discipline, right? Even in high school, you have to you got practice the next day. You got to discipline yourself. I can't go hang out with my friends, or you might have to go and miss a party, or whatever it is. But I learned that at a young age is just to have the discipline to be able to. All right, I can't do that because I want this. There's a lot of times, man. Motivation only gets you so far.
Mhm.
I wake up every morning not wanting to do something, but because of the discipline, you do it, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing is for me is just having discipline to be able to do what you need to instead of doing it because based off you feel, oh, I feel good today, so I'm gonna do this, as opposed to, man, like running, for example, right? If you're a runner, it doesn't matter if it's snowing or raining, you're gonna go out there when the elements are bad, not just when it's nice. And so it's kind of that same mentality, just having the discipline to do it when it's not fun.
I think, people they'll think about, man, you're a business owner. It must be nice, but it's also not nice because there's really no one that you have to answer to,
Yeah,
sometimes I feel
right.
like we get work done because
Yeah.
there's someone looking over our shoulder, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely an accountability aspect to it.
Yeah.
Um, now that we've, at least for me, now that I brought on capital, I'm not just uh, accountable to myself. I'm accountable to these people and their finances, and so which is good. I think for me, it puts an extra level of pressure on you to make sure you get it done because other people believe in you, right? And so
Yeah.
that's the part that I enjoy.
And and but also, there's so many athletes that have made it in the NFL or played in sports here, and we've all learned the same thing. But why do you think and not everybody ends up, doing businesses, or they end up going bankrupt or losing all of the money here? What what have you kind of learned of what has set you apart to be different than those?
Um, I've lost, you know what? Shoot, straight up, I've lost money, man. I've lost money, but I've learned, for me, I think from an athlete's perspective, when you made it at the very top, right, NFL, I think the at least for me, the most difficult thing was. So I'm gonna back up. Um, my this was, and I talked about this before, but I was married. We had kids, and it might have been 2 or 3 years when I was out of the league. Man, I had lost a ton of money, to the point where like I was driving. This was pre-Uber. I was driving at Sundance Film Festival, driving executives around just to try to make some extra cash. But I think there comes a humility aspect, right? Because at that level, everybody is, man, you're the man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's asking you for autographs. They might not even know who you play for, know who you are, but they still, you're the man. So I think for me, there was a huge humbling moment where, like, man, you go from up here to down here real quick. Um, and there was a huge humbling moment where, like, man, all right, I've got to focus and just kind of, do what I got, what I need to do just to make, whatever, just to help out at home or, whatever it is. But um, it's tough, for a lot of the, pro athletes that are transitioning because you go from such a pinnacle to a regular person, right?
Yeah. Oh
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So that's I think that's why, I don't know. I think that's why a lot of players struggle is because you go from being the man to, no one really cares about you anymore. But I think that comes when you identify yourself as a football player. I never
Mhm.
identified myself as a football player. I always identified myself as something else. I never, and I remember my first year in Pittsburgh. Um, Troy Polamalu did the same thing. I remember we had this conversation. He said the same thing. He's like, I don't identify myself as. There's so much more to me than just football.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I think once you realize that, that football is just a small, part of who you are, and there's so much more to you than just football. Um, I think that's when you kind of, when you realize, that there's so much more to be done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Yeah. And that's hard though too, when that become like a majority of your life and what like pushes you. Because I remember when I was a kid, that was always a dream, was to make it to NFL. And then I started playing college and had some injuries. And then my wife kind of asked me, like, what do you want to do? And she asked me some questions. I'm like, you know what? I don't think I want to play football anymore. I think I can do other things to
yeah,
be able to provide. But
yeah.
still, that was like I didn't get to experience it at that level of making it to NFL where everybody's like, man, you're the man, to like, oh, I was like, oh, you were the man, almost like there's a huge
But
drop.
I mean, even with college, right? I mean, you go from you playing football from elementary school, middle school, high school, college, right? And you do it for so long that, okay, what's next for me when you get done? And so even a lot of college athletes go through that. There's a
Yeah,
transition
yeah,
period. But it's just, I think once you kind of, learn that, it's not who you are, right? It's only a small part of what you've done and accomplished. Um, then I think it makes it a lot easier. But there's definitely transitioning and a humbling part that comes, after that.
jeez, yeah, that whole transition and that being humbled. But there's so many good principles and characteristics you learn from
Yeah.
sports, right?
Yep.
Like you talked about it, like the discipline, the hard work, you're the trusting the process, all of these things, and even to be coachable. I mean, I like working in corporate
Oh, that's
here.
huge.
Oh my goodness,
That
man!
is
Like,
huge.
I mean, and being a team player.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there was times here where I could tell if I was managing someone who had played sports versus didn't play sports. You give them some like critical feedback to just kind of how to improve and be better, and they're like get
They,
mad and angry and offended about it, and I'm like,
uh,
listen, you know,
yeah. Trust me, that's we've got a ton of employees, and there's some people you want to see succeed, right? And you give them some pointers, and they take it like, they take it to heart, right? Where it's, it's just constructive criticism. I mean, not even constructive criticism, but it's just being able to be coachable. No, you're right, man. Yeah, that's huge. Is being coachable and being able to take.
yeah.
You
Yeah, it
take
almost came to the point where I was like, man, you know what? I'm not gonna hire anyone else if they didn't play sports. I'm not gonna hire them because they're just too hard to manage. You know, they're like,
yeah.
oh, why would I do that? You know, I'm like, listen, do you want to become successful in this role? This is what you have to do. You know. Oh my gosh, yeah. How do we find you? I mean, people who might be interested or in buying or purchasing a franchise. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So our website is spilledmilkicecream.com.
Okay.
And then, all on the website, there's information you can sign up, and fill out a form for a franchise. Um, I'm available on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the only social media I have. I don't have any other social media. So, someone wants to reach out to me directly, you can do that on LinkedIn. But yeah, as far as inquiries, or, I mean, hey man, it's I'm always wanting to learn, doing what you're doing, talking to other people, kind of, taking the wisdom of the crowd, seeing what works, what doesn't work. So I'm always open. Please reach out, just to kind of talk and, brainstorm about stuff.
Right. Life's too short to try to make all the mistakes. So
Hey, if
let's
somebody's made those mistakes, let
somebody's
me
already made them. Yeah. They
right.
can help us kind of avoid those
Yeah,
pitfalls,
let's navigate through that.
yeah, but you know, when you look at the core and the base of people who have made it or doing some things, they all have the same things, you know, showing up, hard work,
Yeah,
discipline, you
yeah.
know, man, you know,
over
again,
over,
everybody,
over time, you do that over time, man. That's the recipe for success. You show up and show out every day. Eventually it's going to work out. So
amen, amen. Man, well, appreciate you. No, I appreciate you showing up here, coming on the show again here. Any last words you want to leave us with?
no, man, I love what you're doing. I appreciate you putting this together, man, and appreciate what you're doing, man. This is helpful, especially, for our community.